in every neighborhood, there's always that one person everyone admires, the successful one, the helpful one, the one who seems to have it all figured out. In a quiet village called Kudathai in Kerala, India, that person was Jolly Joseph. She was a college professor, respected, well-dressed, always smiling. Every morning, neighbors would see her leave for work at the National Institute of Technology. She drove her white car with confidence, wearing crisp cerise, carrying her college ID card around her neck. But here's the thing. Jolly Joseph was living a lie, and that lie was so massive, so carefully constructed that it took 14 years for anyone to realize the truth. By then, 6 people were dead. Can you imagine? 6 members of the same family, gone, all under mysterious circumstances, all with one person present every single time. This is the story of how a woman fooled everyone and got away with murder for over a decade.
You are watching True Crime Lens.
Before we dive into the first death, it's important to understand the setting where this tragic story unfolded, the Panamatam house in Kudathai. This wasn't just any family home. The Panamatam family was affluent and well-respected in their community. Tom Thomas, the patriarch, was a retired senior clerk from the state education department, and his wife, Anama, was a retired school teacher. They lived in a large, comfortable house and were looked up to by neighbors as pillars of the community. Their children included Roy Thomas, the eldest son who married Jolly Joseph, along with his siblings Rojo and Renji. The family was closely knit and influential, often guiding others in educational and community matters. Jolly came into the Panamatam household in 1997 when she married Roy Thomas, the eldest son of the family. Roy was jobless at the time, but belonged to a respected and well-off family. Jolly, who claimed to be highly educated and presented herself as a promising woman, quickly settled into the large family home, blending into the community with a friendly and caring demeanor. To the neighbors and even to the family members, she seemed like the perfect daughter-in-law, warm, helpful, and ambitious. But beneath that friendly facade, there were lies and ambitions that would soon unravel the peaceful life of the Panamatam family. Let me take you back to August 22nd, 2002. It was an ordinary day in the Panamatam house. Anama Thomas was at home with her family. She was a strong woman, someone people respected in the community. Tom and Anama always cared deeply about their children's future and education. They wanted every child in the family to succeed. Jolly claimed to be well-educated, or at least that's what everyone believed. Anama, hoping Jolly would achieve great things, encouraged her to keep studying or find a good job. Jolly agreed at first, but soon announced she was pregnant, so Anama eased off, believing her daughter-in-law needed rest during the pregnancy. After Jolly gave birth to her first son, Remo, and he turned 2, Anama started urging her again to find a job. But this time, Jolly became reluctant, resisting the pressure that once again crept into her daily life. Now, Anama was getting suspicious of her daughter-in-law. You see, Jolly claimed to have impressive degrees, a master's in commerce, certificates, qualifications. But Anama, being a teacher herself, was starting to ask uncomfortable questions. She kept pushing Jolly to find a job or continue studying, and Jolly, she was feeling the pressure. So she decided to relieve this pressure in an unimaginable way. That afternoon, Jolly made mutton soup for lunch. Anama ate it. Within minutes, she felt dizzy. Then she collapsed. Everyone panicked. They rushed her to the hospital, but it was too late. The doctors said it was a heart attack, a sudden, tragic heart attack. The family was devastated, but they accepted it. Why wouldn't they? Anama was in her 50s. These things happen, right? No one suspected anything. No one asked for an autopsy. And Jolly? She played the role of the grieving daughter-in-law perfectly. But here's what no one knew. Anama Thomas didn't die of a heart attack. She was poisoned. And this was just the beginning. Jolly always looked up to Anama and wanted everything she had. Respect, the matriarchal authority within the house, and the admiration of the community as a well-known teacher. So when Anama was gone, Jolly saw her chance. She decided she would step into that powerful role herself and become the new center of respect and decision-making in the family. After Anama's death, something interesting happened. Jolly started taking more control of the household. She became closer to her father-in-law, Tom Thomas, and around this time, she created an entire fake life. Listen to this carefully, because this is where it gets absolutely crazy. In 2005, Jolly told everyone she got a job. Not just any job, a lecturer position at the prestigious National Institute of Technology, NIT Calicut. She even had a fake ID card made. Every single morning for the next 14 years, she would leave the house dressed professionally, drive to NIT, and do you know what she did there? She would sit in the canteen, eat lunch alone, maybe visit the library, and then come back home. She wasn't working there. She never worked there. The college confirmed later that they had never employed anyone named Jolly Joseph. Not as a professor, not as a guest lecturer, not in any capacity whatsoever. But her act was so convincing that no one questioned it. She would talk about her colleagues, her students, her salary of 65,000 rupees per month. She created stories about study tours, faculty meetings, even attending colleagues' weddings. It was all fake. Every single bit of it. Can you imagine the level of planning that takes? The commitment to a lie that big? Well, Jolly wanted this facade for several reasons. She craved respect, power, and financial independence. Things she believed would come with being seen as a successful, educated woman. By pretending to be a college professor at the prestigious National Institute of Technology, she secured a higher social status and earned the trust of her family and neighbors. This false identity gave her the perfect cover to manipulate those around her without suspicion, while also masking her lack of real qualifications and hiding the darker intentions she was quietly pursuing. Fast forward to August 22nd, 2008. Notice anything? Exactly 6 years after Anama's death, to the exact date. Tom Thomas, Jolly's 66-year-old father-in-law, was about to die. Now, Tom owned valuable property, land, and the family house. And Jolly wanted it as an inheritance. She was worried that Tom might transfer everything to his younger son, Rojo, who was living in the United States. She couldn't let that happen. At the same time, Jolly was having an affair with Roy's cousin, MS Matthew. Matthew had always been around the family, so his visits never raised eyebrows at first. But Tom, Roy's father, started to sense something wasn't right between his daughter-in-law and Matthew. At first, Tom tried to ignore his suspicions, thinking maybe he was just imagining things. But one day, Tom returned home when no one else was there and caught Jolly and Matthew in an intimate moment. It was the first time anyone caught Jolly red-handed. Not wanting to shame the family or break his son's heart, Tom quietly confronted them, warning Matthew to stay away and telling Jolly he wouldn't tolerate this behavior anymore. That moment made Jolly feel cornered. For her, the only way to keep her secrets safe and secure her place in the family was to silence her father-in-law forever. So Jolly did something clever. She called Tom while he was visiting his daughter in Sri Lanka and made up a story. She told him she was pregnant and that Roy, his son, was drinking too much and not caring about her. Tom, being a caring father, immediately came back home. He walked straight into a trap. Before Tom returned, Jolly had already done something shocking. She forged his will. She created a fake document that said all his property should go to her and Roy. She even got help from a local politician named Manoj to make it look legitimate. Manoj helped Jolly create the forged document because he was promised a share of the family property if her plan succeeded. His involvement was driven by personal gain and the benefits he believed he would get by helping Jolly seize the assets. On August 22nd, Tom Thomas ate dinner with his family. Jolly had mixed cyanide into his food. This time, she wasn't using regular poison. She was using cyanide, one of the deadliest substances known to man. A neighbor, Muhammad Bava, heard sounds of someone being violently sick from the Thomas house. When he rushed over, Jolly calmly told him that Tom wasn't feeling well. Muhammad found Tom unresponsive. They rushed him to the hospital, but he was already dead. The doctors said, heart attack. Again and again. No one questioned it. No autopsy. The family accepted it as a tragic loss. But Jolly, she immediately produced the forged will. The property was now hers. Tom's other children, Rojo and Renji, were suspicious about that will. Something didn't feel right, but they had no proof. What could they do? They worried that raising these concerns might damage their relationship with Roy, the eldest brother. Afraid that suspicion or accusations would break the bond they all shared, they chose to keep quiet and leave things as they were. September 30th, 2011. This is where Jolly crossed a line that most people can't even imagine. She decided to kill her own husband, Roy Thomas. Why? Well, their marriage was falling apart. Roy was unemployed, which embarrassed Jolly, especially since she was pretending to be a successful professor. But more importantly, Jolly had developed feelings for someone else, Roy's cousin, a man named Shaju, and Roy was in the way. You see how Jolly shifted her interest from Roy to Matthew and then to a new man named Shaju. Unlike Matthew, Shaju had a solid reputation within the family and community. Recognizing this, Jolly decided she had to be with Shaju to secure her position and fulfill her ambitions. That evening, Jolly served Roy dinner. Rice and Bengal graham curry, laced with cyanide. After eating dinner, Roy suddenly felt nauseous and rushed to the toilet, shutting the door tightly behind him. From outside, Jolly could hear his final moments, the harsh coughing, the desperate gasps for breath. She made sure to close all windows and doors, keeping his struggle muffled so no one nearby could hear. When she was confident no sounds were coming out from the bathroom anymore, she calmly approached the neighbors, feigning concern and saying she didn't know what had happened, but that Roy hadn't answered the door once he had gone inside the toilet. Roy was found dead in the ground floor bathroom with the door locked from the inside. Jolly immediately started telling everyone it was suicide. She said Roy was depressed about money problems, that he couldn't handle the financial stress. But here's where things took a different turn. Roy's maternal uncle, a man named Matthew Menjadil, insisted on an autopsy. This was the first time anyone had demanded a proper investigation. And what did the autopsy reveal? Cyanide poisoning. The forensic doctor, Dr. Sonuar, had a rare genetic ability. She could smell cyanide. Only about 33% of people can do this. She immediately wrote in her report, "A strong case of cyanide caused the death." This should have been it, right? This should have exposed everything. But guess what happened? The police closed the case and called it a suicide. Can you believe that? They had forensic evidence of cyanide poisoning, and they just ignored it. They said Roy killed himself and closed the investigation. This decision, this negligence, it allowed Jolly to kill 3 more people. Suspicion became stronger this time for Roy's sister Renji and brother Rojo. They had the autopsy report. They knew something was wrong, but the police wouldn't listen. And Jolly? She continued living her lie, free to kill again. Now, this is where the story becomes truly horrifying, because Jolly's next victims, they were a mother and her 2-year-old daughter. Remember Shaju, the man Jolly wanted? He was married to a woman named Siley, and they had a daughter named Alfine. Jolly saw them as obstacles. In May 2014, during a family gathering, Jolly gave little Alfine a slice of bread. But this bread, it had cyanide on it. The toddler ate it, stopped breathing, and died. Everyone thought she choked on the food. A tragic accident. That's what they believed. Alfine was 2 years old. Just 2. What kind of person kills a baby to clear the way for a relationship? But Jolly wasn't done. In 2016, she killed Siley too. Siley went into depression after she lost her child, and guess who was taking care of her? Jolly herself. She gave her pills, telling her they would help with depression and anxiety. Siley took them and collapsed, dying with her head in Jolly's lap. After confirming Siley was dead, Jolly sent a text message to Shaju. Just 2 words, everything clear. Think about that for a moment. Everything clear, like she just finished some routine task, not like she just murdered his wife. But to this date, due to lack of evidence, Shaju is not convicted for the murder of his wife and daughter as an accomplice. But Renji noticed something strange at Siley's funeral. While everyone else wore sadness on their faces, Jolly seemed strangely happy inside. Yet when it came time for her to be buried, she put on a sorrowful mask. The moment that stood out most was when Siley's husband, Shaju, leaned in to give his wife a last kiss. Suddenly, Jolly stepped in and joined him, making the moment awkward and uncomfortable for those watching. This odd behavior didn't escape Renji's watchful eyes, raising more doubts in her mind about Jolly's true feelings and intentions. Less than a year later, in 2017, Jolly and Shaju got married. She had eliminated his wife and daughter, and now she had what she wanted. But there was still one problem for Jolly. Remember Matthew Mangiadillo, the uncle who had insisted on Roy's autopsy? He was still asking questions. He was still suspicious. He was still a threat. On February 24th, 2014, Jolly visited Matthew Mangiadillo at his home. Knowing he was a regular drinker, she quietly added cyanide to his alcoholic drink without him noticing. Matthew drank as usual, following his regular routine, but the poison didn't kill him outright. Instead, he began coughing and choking, showing the same distressing symptoms that Tom Thomas had exhibited years earlier. Watching from her house, Jolly realized Matthew's struggle might attract the neighbors' attention and foil her plan. So, later that day, she went back to his home with a bottle of water laced with cyanide. When Matthew complained of feeling unwell, she gave him the poisoned water, ensuring the deadly poison finally took its fatal toll. And here's something absolutely chilling. Jolly's younger son was present during the second poisoning. According to police reports, she asked the boy to check if anyone was coming while she poisoned Matthew. She involved her own child in murder. Matthew died, and once again, everyone believed it was natural causes. He'd had heart problems before, so it made sense, right? By now, Jolly had gotten away with 6 murders, 6 people dead, and no one suspected a thing. She was living her dream life. Fake professor job, new husband, control of the family property. She thought she'd gotten away with it all. But she hadn't counted on Rojo Thomas. In 2018, Rojo started connecting the dots. His mother, Anuma, is dead. His father, Tom, dead. His brother, Roy, dead. His uncle, Matthew, dead. And every single death happened with Jolly present. Every single one. Rojo, Roy's brother who was living in the United States, never stopped questioning his brother's death, along with his sister Renji. For years, they pored over the autopsy report, the one that plainly stated cyanide poisoning, the one the police had ignored. At the same time, Renji decided to bring their concerns directly to Jolly's and Roy's son, Remo. She told him straight. She and Rojo suspected his mother and believed she might be linked to the deaths of his father and grandparents. Remo was shocked at first, but eventually found the courage to confront Jolly himself. At first, she denied everything. But as Remo pressed harder, Jolly confessed, not only to killing his father and grandparents, but also Matthew, Alphine, and Siley. The revelation hit Remo like a tidal wave, but he knew what he had to do. He told Renji everything. Together, they brought this information to the police. Rojo and Renji filed complaints. The local police dismissed them, but Rojo didn't give up. He took the matter to higher authorities. He contacted the crime unit. He kept pushing and pushing, until finally, in August 2019, the police agreed to investigate. Jolly knew that Rojo was going to be another obstacle in her plans, but unlike the previous 6, she couldn't get rid of him so easily. Rojo was living far away, outside her immediate reach. So she tried a different tactic. Jolly reached out to Rojo and tried to lure him back, inviting him to visit, promising that they could settle their misunderstandings if he just came home. But this time, Rojo was convinced she wanted to make him her next victim. He stayed cautious and, from the safety of the US, started pulling the strings that would finally trap Jolly and bring her crimes to light. And once the special crime unit started looking, they couldn't believe what they found. The police exhumed 5 bodies, they collected samples, they interviewed hundreds of people, and they discovered something shocking. Jolly's entire life was a lie. When they contacted NIT Calicut, the college confirmed she had never worked there. Never. Not even for a single day. They checked her educational certificates, all fake. They found the forged will. They tracked down her accomplices. You see, Jolly wasn't working alone in all this. She had help getting the deadly cyanide. MS Matthew, the man she had the affair with, worked in a jewelry store and got the poison for her from a goldsmith named Prajakumar. Since goldsmiths use cyanide legally in the process of designing and polishing gold jewelry, it was easy for Prajakumar to supply it. Matthew paid 5,000 rupees and 2 bottles of alcohol for the cyanide, telling the goldsmith it was needed to kill rats. The evidence was overwhelming. The pattern was undeniable, and on October 5th, 2019, the police finally arrested Jolly Joseph. When the news broke, Kerala was in shock. India was in shock. A respected professor, a church-going woman, a seemingly loving family member, was actually a serial killer who had murdered 6 people over 14 years. Hundreds of people gathered outside the court when Jolly was brought for her appearance. Some booed, some just stared in disbelief. During interrogation, Jolly confessed to all 6 murders. She explained her motives, property, money, relationships, eliminating threats. She provided details about how she carried out each killing. She even admitted to carrying a small bottle of cyanide in her handbag, ready to use whenever an opportunity arose. But here's something interesting. Her confessions kept changing. Details would vary between interrogation sessions. Sometimes she remembered things, sometimes she didn't. This became a problem for the prosecution later. The police also arrested 3 accomplices. MS Matthew and Prakumar for supplying the cyanide, and Manoj for helping forge Tom Thomas's will. All 4 were charged with multiple counts of murder, conspiracy, and forgery. Now, you'd think with confessions and clear patterns, this case would be straightforward, right? But it wasn't. Not even close. When the bodies were exhumed and tested, the forensic results were disappointing. Only 2 bodies, Roy Thomas and Silly Shaju, showed traces of cyanide. The other 4? Nothing. No cyanide detected at all. Why? Because cyanide degrades over time. It's unstable. After being buried for 10 to 15 years, it breaks down and becomes undetectable. The forensic experts explained this was completely expected, but it weakened the physical evidence significantly. So the prosecution had to build their case differently. They focused on the pattern. The medical board reviewed all the hospital records and witness statements and concluded that all 6 deaths were caused by poisoning. They had Jolly's confessions, though inconsistent. They had the forged will. They had her fake educational certificates. They had the suspicious timing of each death. Most importantly, they had the testimony of 246 witnesses in just the first case alone. Family members, neighbors, medical staff, everyone who had observed the deaths and Jolly's behavior. The trial began in March 2023. It's been slow. Some witnesses turned hostile. Others struggled to remember details from events that happened years ago. The defense argued that without solid forensic evidence in 4 of the cases, the prosecution couldn't prove murder beyond reasonable doubt. And then something else happened. In February 2020, while waiting for her trial to begin, Jolly tried to take her own life in prison. She slit her wrist, but prison officers couldn't find any sharp object in her cell. Some thought she might have used her teeth. Others believed it was a trick, a way to gain sympathy. What was clear, though, was that Jolly never showed any real regret for taking 6 lives. Instead, she only seemed upset about losing her future, about the collapse of the fake life and carefully crafted facade she had built. In 2021, Shaju Zachariah filed for divorce. He claimed Jolly had manipulated him and endangered his life. In June 2025, the family court granted the divorce. Shaju wanted nothing more to do with the woman who had killed his first wife and daughter. As of now, in October 2025, the trial is still ongoing. The court has examined 124 prosecution witnesses so far in the primary case. More witnesses remain. The defense continues to challenge the circumstantial evidence. The prosecution continues to argue that the pattern, the motives, and the confessions are enough to prove guilt. But you know what gets lost in all the legal proceedings and forensic discussions? The human cost of what Jolly did. 6 people lost their lives. Anama Thomas, a retired teacher who just wanted her daughter-in-law to be honest. Tom Thomas, a father who came home because he thought his family needed him. Roy Thomas, a husband who trusted his wife. Matthew Manjadil, an uncle who insisted on the truth. Little Alphine, who was only 2 years old and never had a chance at life. And Siley, a mother who had already lost her daughter and then lost her own life. Their families were devastated. Rojo and Renji lost their parents and brother. They spent years knowing something was wrong but unable to prove it, unable to get justice. And Jolly's own sons, Can you imagine what it's like to discover your mother is a serial killer, to learn that she killed your father, your grandparents, members of your extended family? They were left to live with relatives, trying to rebuild their lives away from the shame and horror of what their mother did. The community of Kutathai was shattered. Neighbors who used to trust each other started looking at everyone differently. People began questioning deaths they'd previously accepted as natural. The sense of safety that comes from living in a close community, that was destroyed. This case exposed so many failures. The police who ignored forensic evidence of cyanide poisoning and called it suicide. The medical system that didn't conduct autopsies when they should have. The community that accepted too many coincidental deaths without question. But it also showed the power of persistence. Rojo Thomas didn't give up. Even when the police dismissed him, even when it seemed hopeless, he kept fighting for the truth. And eventually, that persistence paid off. The case became famous across India and even internationally. In December 2023, Netflix released a documentary called Curry and Cyanide, the Jolly Joseph Case. It brought global attention to this shocking story of deception and murder. The case changed how people think about trust, about verifying credentials, about questioning suspicious patterns. It became a training case for police academies. It sparked discussions about female criminals and how gender stereotypes can blind us to danger. Because that's the thing. Jolly got away with it for so long, partly because she was a woman, a wife, a mother. People couldn't imagine that someone who seemed so normal, so successful, so caring, could be capable of such calculated evil. As we document this case in October 2025, we're still waiting for the final verdict. The trial continues at the Additional Sessions Court. Witnesses are still being examined. Legal arguments are still being made. If Jolly is convicted on all counts, she could face multiple life sentences or even the death penalty. Her accomplices face varying charges based on their involvement. But regardless of what the court decides, one thing is clear. Jolly Joseph fooled everyone for 14 years. She maintained an elaborate lie while taking 6 lives. She exploited trust, manipulated relationships, and showed no remorse for her actions. The case stands as a reminder that evil doesn't always look like what we expect. Sometimes it looks like a respected professor in a crisp sari, driving to work every morning with a smile. Sometimes it looks like the person you trust most. Thank you for staying with me through this dark and complex story. The Jolly Joseph case is one that makes you question everything. How well do we really know the people around us? How many red flags do we miss because we want to believe the best about others? 6 families lost their loved ones because warning signs were ignored, because investigations weren't done properly, because one woman's ambition and selfishness mattered more to her than human life. As this case moves toward its conclusion in the courts, we can only hope that justice will finally be served for Anama, Tom, Roy, Matthew, little Alphine, and Siley. They deserved better. They deserved to live. And we owe it to them to learn from this tragedy, to question suspicious patterns, to demand proper investigations, and to never let our assumptions about people blind us to the truth. What do you think about this case? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, please share it and subscribe for more true crime stories that need to be told. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into one of India's most shocking criminal cases. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who seem the most normal.